There was a moment last month when your boss looked at you differently. They offered you an important project. They told you they trusted you more than anyone else on the team. You walked out of that meeting feeling chosen, almost relieved, as if someone had finally noticed all the effort you'd been putting in. But there's one question you may not have asked yourself yet, and it's worth asking now before you keep listening. What if that opportunity wasn't exactly what it seemed? Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. But before you keep defending that person in your mind, I want you to think about just one thing. How many times after a meeting like that did you end up doing twice the work for half the recognition? That question doesn't have an answer yet. It only has a name, and that name is pattern. A pattern that repeats itself in thousands of offices, with different faces, in different countries, but driven by the same underlying logic. And that pattern has 9 different ways of showing up. Hold on to that word, pattern, because you're going to need it over the next few minutes to look back at your own story through a completely different lens. Today, you're going to learn the 9 warning signs in order of increasing severity, along with the exact move you should make in response to each one. If you recognize 3 or more of them, you probably don't just have a difficult boss. You're dealing with something else entirely, and that changes all the rules of the game. Stay until sign number 7, because it's the one almost nobody catches in time, and it's also the one that looks the most like a favor. And if what you're about to hear helps you finally put a name to something you've been feeling but couldn't explain, subscribing, turning on notifications, and giving this video a like helps this channel keep reaching you whenever you need to see things more clearly. Before we get to the 9 signs, there's one simple distinction you need to understand. A bad boss makes mistakes without meaning to, and those mistakes don't consistently benefit anyone in particular. A manipulative boss, on the other hand, repeats behaviors that serve a purpose and consistently benefit the same person, usually themselves. The difference isn't found in one isolated incident. It's found in repeated behavior that always produces the same advantage. With that single rule in mind, you're ready to see the entire pattern. The first layer of warning signs is verbal, and the very first one is public praise, followed by private criticism. In front of the team, your boss presents you as someone valuable, even exemplary. But behind closed doors, in a private office, or a direct message, they tell you your work isn't meeting expectations. That combination isn't the result of a change in mood. It's a strategy. It builds such a positive public image that if you ever decide to speak up about unfair treatment, nobody around you will believe you, because in public that person always seemed to admire you. The second sign is impossible deadlines disguised as a vote of confidence. You're given a task with a timeline that no reasonable professional could realistically meet, and it's presented as recognition of your abilities. When the work isn't finished on time, that failure becomes evidence of your limitations, instead of evidence that the demand was unreasonable from the very beginning. Someone who truly wants you to fail doesn't withhold responsibility. They hand you responsibility and expect you to mistake it for trust. The third sign is selective memory when it comes to agreements, and this one is harder to recognize because it leaves no visible trace. Imagine this scene. During a meeting, your boss clearly tells you that if you finish the report before Friday, you'll be able to take the following Monday off. Friday arrives, you deliver the report on time, and when you bring up taking Monday off, you're met with genuine surprise, as though that conversation never happened. A few weeks later, something similar happens again, with a different issue and a different promise. A raise that was supposedly going to be discussed during your next performance review simply never comes up. There are no raised voices, no confrontation, just calm denial that makes you question your own memory over and over again, until you start wondering if maybe you're the problem. When you're faced with these first 3 signs, the defensive move is always the same, and it's simple. After every important conversation, send a brief email summarizing what was agreed upon. It's not about accusing anyone ahead of time. It's about making sure there's a written record somewhere outside your own memory, a version of the facts that nobody can rewrite later. The second layer of warning signs is no longer verbal. It's structural, and it starts affecting your position within the team. The fourth sign is gradual isolation. Meetings happen without you. Decisions are communicated only after they've already been made. Information arrives late or arrives incomplete. Imagine showing up at work on a Monday morning and casually finding out from a coworker that the previous Friday there was a meeting about the very project you're working on, and nobody told you. Nobody explicitly hid it from you. Your name simply stopped appearing on the invitation list, little by little, without any formal explanation. Gradually, you stop being part of the conversations that matter most, even though your workload stays the same, or even gets heavier. The fifth sign is constant comparisons with your coworkers. Your boss, casually, but repeatedly, brings up another employee's performance, almost in passing. That repetition isn't meant to motivate you. It's meant to create a silent rivalry that keeps the two of you from becoming allies. As long as you're competing against each other, nobody is paying close attention to what the person making the comparisons is doing. The sixth sign is changing the criteria after the work has already been delivered. You complete exactly what was asked of you, following every instruction to the letter, and the moment you finish, a brand new requirement suddenly appears, one that nobody mentioned before you started. The finish line keeps moving so you'll never quite reach it, and that constant shift keeps you trapped in a permanent state of being almost good enough, but never completely. Taken on their own, each of these six signs has an innocent explanation. Meetings that were forgotten by accident, comparisons made with no bad intentions, standards that evolve as the project develops. But when all six show up together, with the same person consistently at the center of them, that innocent explanation no longer holds up. And if you've recognized any of these six signs in your own workplace so far, get ready, because sign number 7 is usually the one that confirms every doubt that came before it. Sign number 7 is the high visibility project wrapped in praise. It's presented as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but it comes without the resources needed to succeed, without a realistic deadline, and without any real political support inside the company. Your boss needs that failure to look completely like yours, not theirs. That's why the package is presented as a reward instead of what it really is, a carefully disguised trap. Manipulators don't need to destroy your reputation in a single blow. They only need to keep placing you, over and over again, in situations where failure appears inevitable, and entirely your fault. It takes only 48 hours to identify a poisoned gift, and it requires just 3 specific questions. Ask about the available budget. Ask who will be on the team supporting you. Ask exactly how success will be measured. The reaction to those 3 questions tells you everything you need to know. If the answers are vague, evasive, or openly irritated, you already have your answer before you even accept the project. And if you decide to accept it anyway, protect yourself. Get the conditions in writing. Establish intermediate review checkpoints. And whenever possible, make sure the most important conversations happen with witnesses present. Up to this point, everything you've seen has been about work, reputation, and power within the company's structure. But there's a third layer, quieter than the ones before it, where the goal is no longer to control your tasks or your position. The goal is to control the way you see yourself within that environment. That shift, from structural control to emotional control, is what turns a difficult boss into a relationship of dependency. The 8th sign is the cycle of tension and relief. Weeks of coldness, distance, and excessive demands are followed by a warm gesture, unexpected praise, or a moment of closeness that seems to bring everything back to normal. That contrast doesn't happen by accident or because of mood swings. It's the exact mechanism that creates emotional dependency, because every kind gesture after so much coldness feels like an enormous relief, even though it's really nothing more than the basic level of respect every person deserves in a healthy workplace. The 9th sign is taking credit for your work in real time, in front of witnesses who say nothing. Your boss presents one of your ideas as if it were their own during a meeting, with other people watching, and nobody steps in to correct the record. That moment isn't just about stolen credit. It's a silent test, a way for your boss to measure how much power they believe they have over you, and over the silence of everyone watching the scene without saying a word. Now comes the part that really matters: what to do with the result of this assessment. If you recognize between 0 and 2 signs, you're probably dealing with an imperfect manager, but still within the normal range of human leadership. If you recognize between 3 and 5 signs, you've entered what could be called defense mode. That means documenting everything, building relationships with allies outside that person's direct influence, and making sure your work is visible to other levels of the organization. Once you recognize 6 or more signs, the relationship is no longer something that can be repaired from the inside. The energy you'd spend trying to fix that dynamic is better redirected toward a carefully planned, negotiated exit, one carried out calmly and without rushing. Manipulation isn't an isolated event. It's a system sustained over time through patience and the confusion of the person living inside it. Manipulators don't need you to doubt them. They only need you to doubt yourself. If you recognized yourself in 6 or more of these signs, I want to tell you something without drama and with all the seriousness this moment deserves. You're not crazy. You're not overreacting. You're seeing the situation clearly, perhaps for the very first time. Tell me in the comments exactly how many signs you recognized, because that number says more about your work environment than any performance review ever will. And if this video helped you finally put a name to something you've been feeling but didn't know how to explain, subscribing, turning on notifications, giving this video a like, and sharing your number in the comments is the best way to make sure you don't miss the next video, where we'll talk about the exit strategy for when the decision has already been made.